about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, you see everybody kind of in a panic. Deborah Messing, people in Hollywood going, wait, what happened here? Not a surprise. New York City voted for Zohran Mamdani. But did New York City vote for him? I mean, to the degree, New York City has 8.4 million people. Now, they were saying this turnout was a record turnout. It might have been more in numbers than, some recently previous ones. But I think Zohran Mamdani, if we could look at his numbers here, the Democratic Socialist, he won 1,036,000 votes. That's a lot, but that's 12% of the population. Of the registered voters, forget how many registered voters there are, 3 million? That to me tells me that New York City, they don't really get out and vote. 1 million voted for him. That's a lot. But is that million representative of the 5 boroughs? Is that the 8.4? And by the way, 8.4 million was the number in 2025. So that's kind of concerning. Another thing we can learn from what happened yesterday is there was a lot of pressure on Curtis Sliwa to drop out. And even though, yes, that might have made the ballots a little easier, like Andrew Cuomo's name, if you saw the ballot, it was ridiculous how they did this, where you would think it would be alphabetical order. That's how a lot of, they change it. It's alphabetical order when they like the candidate. But Zohran Mamdani was apparently first, and Andrew Cuomo, who has both an A and a C in his name, was not first listed. He was down, mixed in between multiple other candidates. But how I look at it is, look, you can do whatever shenanigans you want. They did that with Trump on ballots and things like that. If somebody really wants to vote for Trump or Mamdani or Cuomo, they're going to find that name. The idea that somebody is just random and going to, at ease, check the box because it's easy for them, that's sad if some people vote that way, but, so people had noticed that. But also, if you look at the distribution of votes between Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, and Zohran Mamdani, Mamdani got 1,036,000 votes. Andrew Cuomo got 854,000. Curtis Sliwa, 146,000. So when you add those up, Mamdani would still win. And so Cuomo did have I don't want to say the best chance in theory. They probably needed somebody running against Mamdani more popular than Cuomo. But Cuomo ends up, being the one that's facing him off in the Democratic primary and ends up losing and then runs as an independent. But that also shows that whether Curtis Sliwa stayed or not, it didn't. I don't think it would have helped. Another thing that also explains is Curtis Sliwa was polling fairly for a Republican in a New York City mayor race. He was polling much higher than his numbers turned out, which also tells us that Republicans were willing to vote for Cuomo, who they disliked years ago for obvious reasons. They were willing to leave the R and go for the presumed D, now I, to prevent Mamdani from winning. So that's also a very, very telling shift. And then another thing is Mamdani ran as the Democrat. He calls himself the Democratic Socialist. And we hear that donors who were very anti-Israel, supported terrorism, put money into, his coffers. I mean, he is no friend to Israel, no friend to the Jewish population, no friend to police, no friend to capitalists. He's not very popular per se, in terms of people that he would be representing in New York City. But he wins the Democratic nominee. They're not giving him his own socialist party. He was able to bump out Andrew Cuomo, establishment Democrat, forcing Cuomo to go independent, and he get the Democratic crown, which is very interesting. So does that mean the Democrats are now more socialist? Now, when you talk to the average Democrat, they're like, oh, hell no. JFK would be rolling over in his grave. No. But if you saw what happened, this is a huge historical shift. Mamdani forcing a Democrat, a very well-funded establishment Democrat, not popular, but still, to be independent. And is he and Ocasio-Cortez and Fateh and all the other ones that have been running as socialists, are they the new Democrats? I mean, I have Kennedy Democrats in the family, Clinton Democrats in the family, Reagan Republicans, Trump Republicans. I mean, we have a family mixed of all that. We don't have socialists in the family. And that was a different party. But is that what Democrats are going to be? Is that how they are going to now be perceived? Is Ocasio-Cortez the face of the Democratic Party? Is Iran Mamdani? And if they don't, appeal to Democrats, who leaves? Do they leave and form their own party, or do Democrats leave? And so what we saw with this race is the Democrats had to move to independent. And Republicans, so against Marxism, communism, anti-Semitism, had to leave supporting Sliwa to vote for the previous Democrat who's now independent. This is a huge shift. Now, people could say, Dr. Daliah, New York City does not predict, the future of these. New York City is the capitalistic capital of the world. And when you have somebody who, by the way, not very unifying. I mean, he was not saying, hey, guys, we're going to come together. It's a concern. It's a huge concern. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So for those of you shopping for health insurance, or your employer is telling you that there's going to be some changes to the insurance plan, many of you probably made this sound. That's high. I did. When I looked at next year's premiums for my husband and my insurance, and we have one son that'll still be on it, I had to catch my breath. And I was like, what? And this is beyond Obamacare subsidies, because we don't qualify for the subsidies. It is just getting ridiculous how expensive insurance is. And the shutdown and Democrats blaming Republicans for, insurance premiums going up. The insurance premiums are going up. And the way Obamacare was written, very stupidly, is we're just going to keep padding the insurance companies, try and pay down some of the with subsidies, some of the cost. But ridiculously, the costs are still going up. And we as Americans can't fight. We can't vote to change it. Obamacare is the law of the land. I mean, we've talked about how Trump needs to come up with Trump care and fast, but I don't think they have a plan, because to dismantle Obamacare would cause a complete, and as I said, it's like cutting the red wire of a bomb. You can cause an implosion of our healthcare system. You cannot just repeal and replace unless you have a very good replacement. And that became unpopular because people didn't know how to fix the mess. Most of us doctors left. Obama needed us. Said, you'll get to keep your doctor. I'm gone. I mean, I'm doing telemedicine, but my patients, they drive by my office and they tell me. And they go, you've been gone for years. I go, I know. That's Obamacare. I didn't want to leave. And, people, say, could you please clarify how Obamacare made you close your office? Very simple. From $500 deductibles, I remember a $2,500 deductible back in the early O's, not the teens, but the O's of the start of the century. Were a $2,500 deductible was a high deductible plan, and I felt bad for patients having that. Now, after Obamacare, that became, for most people, the minimum deductible. And patients were having $10,000 deductibles. And what does a deductible mean? Well, when an insurance company that you're paying premiums to monthly gets your claim, if you have not met your deductible, paying that money out for medical claims, they don't pay until you have. So if you have a $10,000 deductible, your insurance company will not start paying until you have shelled out $10,000 for your medical care. Now you could say, but Dr. Daliah, I bought a wheelchair and I did, those don't count. Where they count it is when you put something through insurance and the insurance reduces the amount, which we want insurance to do, and say, okay, you owe $200 now for this visit, or you owe $45. You're thinking, well, gosh, the doctor charged me $200, but I paid $45. That $45 counts towards that $10,000 deductible. So the average person doesn't make a dent by December 25th. Now you would think, but you know what? If you make it by December 25th, well, then the next year you'll be able to. No, because it starts over. You see the BS they do? It's ridiculous. And we take this. So then as a physician, before Obamacare, that $43, that was the patient portion or what the insurance would pay, would be in our mailbox. That $150 for a physical, that $28.72. And so that money would add up and we could pay the rent. We could pay our staff. Instead, after 2009, it was patient owes, your check is for $0. Your check is for $0. Enjoy it. And then we were told that we had to bill the patient. Well, now we're in a recession. And I know Wikipedia has changed the history to the recession ended in 2009. It went from '08 to '09. That recession where I live went on till 2015. People didn't have jobs, so they couldn't pay that $43. They couldn't pay that $150. They couldn't pay that $25. So if they're not paying and insurance isn't paying, no money's coming in. Most doctors were like, to hell with this. And I don't blame them. And it's a shame. Because unfortunately, yeah, people did lose their doctors. So here we are now. It is 2025. And you all are getting you're looking at what your insurance rates are going to be, and you're shocked. And I don't blame you for being shocked. On top of that, you have what the Democrats are doing with the government shutdown and saying, well, it's all held up because of the subsidies. Okay, these tax credit enhancements that are set to expire are not a part of the big, beautiful bill. They're not a part of Trump Care, right? These were a part of the Affordable Care Act and Inflation Reduction Act, Obama-Biden. So here we are, where these enhancements help some of the payments and the cost to you, which we want. We want people to, receive assistance because it's ridiculous. But the average American who doesn't get those subsidies are like, what the hell are we doing here? And it's funny because the term Obamacare leaves such a bitter taste in my mouth, right? And now here we are again. Obama has been out of office now since 2016. Well, the end of 2015. He's been out, 2016, out of office. And we still are plagued with this ridiculous bill. And now Americans are being screwed. TSA agents are being screwed. Federal workers are being screwed. Because Democrats are trying to use the excuse, well, it's because of the Obamacare subsidies that the Republicans want. I mean, really? See, they think they could make the American public hate Republicans by doing this. But actually, people hate Obamacare. You have created a system where people are now dependent on government taking something in the private sector and helping them pay for it. I don't want to be reliant on the government, but we've become reliant on the government. And what happens when you become reliant on the government? Well, as you see, when the politicians, play their games, we pay. So what do we do to get our health insurance down? Well, we could have made some movement by telling insurance companies we're not paying. But there were scabs. Now, a scab is a term we used during strikes, where if everybody kind of grouped together and were on the same page, then you could make something happen. But unfortunately, what has happened is there has been such a push and a desire and a demand for these weight loss drugs that insurance companies are overwhelmed. Even though you could get Novo Nordisk or Eli Lilly to maybe drop their price down to $500 a prescription, insurance companies are still paying a boatload on those drugs. And we could maybe manage it when it was just the cancer drugs and the heart drugs. But these weight loss injections have absolutely made a mess of things. So when a patient is told that with their insurance, they could get the $1,100 a month weight loss drug for $450 with their insurance, they're not complaining. They feel so grateful that price, which by the way is an inflated price, there's been studies that have shown that they can actually make that drug for $5 a month. But I get insurance companies do have a right to make a profit, not a ridiculous profit, But I understand there's R&D, there's cost to making the pens, there's cost to marketing and distribution, and these Wegovy, commercials and training dancers. I get that. But we have now regressed considerably in terms of the fight to bring down costs because we have a growing population, and why not? They're paying ridiculous prices on insurance. They want their expensive weight loss drugs. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Well, we are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So the temperature is up. Now, people feel really, really shocked, by what happened yesterday. It's not, listen, there were some elections that went, the way of the Democrats. And that's, this is America. All right. We cannot expect that it's, just going to be about, one party, and the Virginia governor race going the way of Spanberger, and the New Jersey race going, the way of Nikki Sherrill. These are things that are not, I know people panic because there's this, kind of breath of fresh air from, all the cancel culture and all that. People are feeling like they could be a little bit more free. But I told you guys, listen, as much as I am for freedom of speech and going up against cancel culture and, enjoying and embracing our diversity and divisiveness, on different issues, not our debate, I should say. I don't want us to be divisive and split, but I having diverse opinions and political opinions. The cancel culture and people getting fired, or like that video of that doctor screaming at somebody wearing a MAGA hat, that's going to resurface. It's going to come back. And so, for those of you that are, thinking, look, you will, take this time to be and God bless you having freedom and freedom of speech and all that. But if you are in a career where you think once the tides turn, you could lose your job. Trump being in office doesn't make things permanently change. Cancel culture is going to come back, and it may come back with a vengeance. And so, just understand that. Be as free as you want to. Don't feel like you have to hold back. I want people proud of who they are and who they believe in, but just be aware that, that the tides can change. Do I really think the tides are changing in terms of this? Yes, I understand the Virginia governor was Republican. Now it's Democrat. It's, Abigail Spanberger had a lot of people on her side. She had Obama, which was kind of interesting that Obama was there to support her after he had just chewed everybody out for not supporting Kamala Harris, a black woman. And so that was a little shocking that he wants us to support our black women leaders. And here's Winsome Earl Sears now making, amazing headway. And no. And so it's all a show, and it's, I'm just kind of blown away. But, one thing that was really shocking was the Attorney General that was I forgot. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot his name. The one that was threatening. Oh my gosh, let me see. He was and I'm pulling it up. He's the one that was texting how he wanted his opponent dead, and I'm trying to find. Yeah, Jay Jones. Jay Jones wins. The Democrat Jay Jones, who had texts that resurfaced. This was in Virginia's race for Attorney General, where he was fantasizing about killing a Republican lawmaker and death to the lawmaker's family. Won. Now, I understand that people are starting to embrace socialism. I don't want them to, but when you can't afford, when you're not going to have a job, you can't afford rent. Yeah, we did this to ourselves. I mean, if capitalism, appears to, help everybody but you're not going to necessarily be voting in favor of that. But, really? People voted for somebody who had murderous thoughts. And what makes that so ironic is Attorney General. I mean, the law of that state. That's he is the main attorney for that state. What the hell? And people didn't find that grotesque. So what bothers me is, again, people are more loyal to the D or the R than common sense. Now, we did see that change, as I said, with the mayor race, where Republicans did not vote for Sliwa and voted for Andrew Cuomo. When Trump and Cuomo said a vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani, because, Sliwa's not going to win. So it's going to be a wasted vote. And so you did see people say, you know what, forget about the R and the D. I'm going to vote for what I think is the best thing for New York. And I admire that. And also Democrats did that in terms of voting for Mamdani. Cuomo, establishment Democrat, did not win because Democrats decided to vote for the quote-unquote Democratic Socialist. So you are seeing some people, not be a part of that religion of I'm just going to be D or R and I'm not going to question it. And because if I question it, it's a sin, but come on, really? Somebody sending violent texts. You're the attorney. You should know the law. And that just makes absolutely no sense to me that somebody like that was able to get as far as they did, let alone in the election, never stepped back. And now the other thing, too, that is very significant about that and what happened there is calls to drop out were appropriate. Candidates supporting him who didn't call him out, who didn't say, you know what, this doesn't represent our party, I can't support you, didn't. And they won. So now what? Are we rewarding this type of behavior? That concerns me. Because now if somebody could basically, and I'm surprised he wasn't charged. I mean, those are, you're threatening, that, and I understand he's saying I am fantasizing about it. And that's what people are saying. Well, you can fantasize about whatever you want. Yeah, but not when you're going to be attorney general. Especially since you're not fantasizing about Hitler's death. You're fantasizing about a political opponent's death. Okay, that's breaking the law to me. And so, when I look at what's going on with, in politics and all that, I like to look at the psychology. I like to look at human behavior because I'm here for the long game. Yeah, I'm not here to give medical advice and to, provide care and give it, and do things because I just want to help you for the here and now. I mean, I want humans to stay, I don't want them to go extinct. Okay. I want us to be around for billions of years. But when we make movements like this, I mean, you see these memes around saying New York forgot. You see the September 11th destruction of the World Trade Centers, and then you see Mamdani in the other split shot saying New Yorkers forgot. They said never forget. They forgot. And Mamdani, I would have given him a pass, temporarily a pass, if he didn't have supporters who were, financially linked to terrorists or helping terrorist groups, if he wasn't, threatening to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to New York, if he wasn't not condemning the globalized intifada term and in a way supporting that. And then also his story, he has a chance to talk about September 11th, and he talks about how Islamophobia prevented his auntie, who apparently wasn't his auntie, from riding the bus or subway. Somebody's forgetting. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive this stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So every year I talk about how I'm not liking how I'm aging. And one thing that I'm really bothered by is I don't have the memory I used to. And I think a lot of us are in that same boat. For me to get through medical school, for me to get 1450 on the SATs, for me to work part-time in multiple jobs, hold 3 part-time jobs, and be able to do all the classes I had to in college, to graduate in 4 years and to get A's. I think I had like a 3.8 GPA, 3.84, something like that, so I could get to medical school. I think I took my brain for granted. And I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink a lot of alcohol. But I got older. And now my kids will tell me something, or my husband will tell me something, and sometimes I remember it, sometimes I don't. And years ago, if I met a guy and I wanted his phone number, I would have to memorize it because I wasn't carrying paper or pen, and I didn't have a smartphone in the 90s. I could remember their phone number. Now I can't even remember people's birthdays. I can't even remember their names. Now, I'm saying I took this for granted because you would tell me your name, Dirk. Like, hi, Dirk. And, or Vigo. Hi, Vigo. Your name should be Strider. Anyway, I would remember the name. Now it's, unless I actively try to do something, I forget. Now, I've had CAT scans and MRIs. I mean, I've had more of a workup than Biden has throughout my life, and it's just part of age. And then COVID, I think, really messed with it. Now, mind you, I am still functioning at an amazing level. I'm just not at that level that I used to be. And so I could still learn new information, learn new drugs, prescribe medications, remember things from medical school. I don't want people thinking that I, need to just, close up shop, and say goodnight. No. But I don't like how that's changing. And that's the time for us to, it's really time to step in before you go through the changes. So for those of you who haven't noticed memory changes, you need to act now. But for those of us that are like, I don't like this. Something's up. Well, it's never too late to start looking into it and getting yourself checked out and thinking about ways to improve your memory. Now, COVID, I think, did the biggest number because I went through early menopause. And yeah, my memory changed a little bit with that, but it wasn't until I had those horrific headaches with COVID that I think my memory really started to change, and that brain fog. And I'm pretty ticked off. I am really mad because I loved my memory, and I had a pretty damn good memory. I would, in fact, still to this day, my husband will forget his family's birthdays, and I remember. And so I tell him, did you call so-and-so? Did you call so-and-so? And so I remember things like that, but it's different. And so what do? How do you, you got to put a little work into it. Just like weight. You thought, and I thought, that I would always be a size 7 or 9, because I always bought in the junior section, I think because it was cheaper. So I wasn't an 8 or a 10 or a 12. I was a 7 or 9. And I thought I would always be, no. Oh, hell no. The weight came on. Why did the weight come on? Well, because I didn't take it seriously. I didn't realize that, that I could, the weight will come on if I didn't keep up. Same thing with people in diabetes or high blood pressure. We're not in our 20s anymore. We're not in our 30s anymore. So studies say, well, you should eat right, you should exercise, you should sleep well. They're right about that. But is that like a broken record? You all know you're supposed to eat right. Get those vegetables in, those polyphenols, those antioxidants. Get really good, nutritious vegetables in. Your brain needs that food. You also need sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not going to put things to memory. I used to take naps in medical school. I loved taking naps. And I understand there's been, different, shall we say, data on, if naps are healthy or not. I think they are healthy. If you need to sleep, get some sleep. Plus, it puts things into memory. For those people that are sleep deprived, you don't remember anything, and it's true. I don't remember my first year of marriage with my husband because I was working 36-hour shifts and never sleeping. So you do need to sleep to put memories, into your brain. But I think those studies looking at naps being bad for you, it's a lot of them are associative where it's not that you take a nap and now you're going to have, issues and diabetes and all that. It's a lot of people that don't eat well or drink a lot of alcohol, aren't sleeping well. And then if those behaviors are causing you to not sleep well, those behaviors are probably not doing numbers on your heart, your kidney, your brain health, diabetes. So I think it's just, many people that have poor healthy habits, or if they have sleep apnea, where they're up a lot in the middle of the night subconsciously because they're not breathing and getting enough oxygen when they sleep. Well, if you have decades of sleep apnea, that's going to affect your brain function. So the first thing I recommend you all do after eating well, exercising, sleeping well, is get yourself checked out for sleep apnea. If you're cutting off your air supply in your sleep, or your brain is not getting the proper oxygen, that's going to affect the brain. So get that checked out. Number 2 is you got to put a little bit of work into remembering things. So what I now do is when somebody gives me their name, I'm like, I want you in my phone. Put your name and number in my phone, and I let them type it in. And then I look at it. Sometimes I might do word association. So if they have the same name as somebody I remember from school, I might try to associate that. Or if their name sounds like, a food. So I think that seems to help. And also write things down. For the love of the Lord, write things down. That's okay. I used to be so embarrassed, because I remember my grandma would say, wait, I got to write this down. Or, oh, I got to write this down. I'm like, why am I being embarrassed about that? Write the stuff down. It's more embarrassing for you to forget. A good friend of mine was turning 40, and I was working at the office, and I guess she called me or she texted me or something saying, here's the invite, and I told her they're going to be there. And then about 6 months later, she's like, you guys never showed. Now, I have never missed a party. And I'm like, what party? She's like, you said you were coming. You RSVP'd. We catered it. We paid for your guys'. I felt so bad. And it's because, again, I was, multitasking. Another thing is a lot of us have gotten more attention deficit because we multitask now. I don't sit in front of a TV show and watch the show. I'm also scrolling on my phone. I'm playing a game. I'm looking something up on IMDb going, I've seen that actor before. Where have I seen him before? So I'm not even, my husband and I will watch a show and he's like, I think we saw this episode already. And I'm like, no, we didn't. He's like, yes, we did, but I wasn't paying attention. So pay attention. Well, how do you get yourself to pay attention more? Well, focus on it. Say, I want to remember this. So I want to, I want to put this to memory. So write things down, look at lists, do brain exercises. I think those are really important. And maybe do some online classes and force yourself to remember things. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.